Every laugh, every smile, every hug, every kiss, every touch, every person in my life that I care about and love. But wait, maybe I'm getting too emotional. That's exactly what they say you ain't supposed to do. Suppress your feelings, never talk about your pain. Can't appreciate the sun without acknowledging it rains, right? That's right. So this a moment of clarity. And make sure you always protect your energy. You stay focused and your life gon' be lit. And you are now rocking with Celeste, the therapist.
Hi, beautiful people. Oh, wait. Can you guys hear me? Hold on, you know what? Let me change these headphones because I never changed the mic and I don't want it to mess up the audio for my podcast. I'm just going to change this really quick.
All right. Yo, I've been podcasting so long. I'm like so big on audio now, especially because I edit my own stuff. Hey, Jessica, I'm so big on audio. Oh my gosh. So hi, if you've never been in here before, thank you so much for being here. I truly appreciate you. My name is Celeste. I'm a therapist from Boston. I come on, I talk to people that are doing things to empower other people. But on Wednesdays, you'll find me alone talking about a subject, and then also I will be answering your questions about mental health. I have a podcast. You can hear, hey, Miss Deb. Hey, Andrea. I have a podcast that I started called Celeste the Therapist Podcast. You can find it streaming on all podcasting platforms. And there are 219 episodes, which means that you can like get your life together throughout the day and listen to some people's stories. And I have heard, I'm like so grateful that I have this like opportunity to talk to people and hear their stories, because I've met some amazing people doing amazing things in the community. People are out there, you know, and I think I love the fact that I get to highlight those people. So today's show is sponsored by Marvelous Pro Cleaning. Marvelous Pro Cleaning Solutions, LLC, is a professional small family minority-owned business based out of Dorchester, Mass. If it ain't marvelous clean, then it's not clean. They specialize in commercial and residential cleaning and organizing. They say, why be mediocre when you could be marvelous? Think Marvelous Clean. Take advantage of their specials, Marvelous Deep Clean, $85, where you choose 2 rooms of your choice and get a marvelous clean from top to bottom. Some exclusions apply. Or if you need a quick tidy up for $65, Marvelous Refresh Tidy Clean can refresh your day. You can call them 857-263-3444 or email marvelousprocleaning@gmail.com. So that today's show is sponsored by Marvelous Pro Cleaning. And if you ever want to have your business or service on the show, all you got to do is email info@celestetherapist.com. So today's topic is about checking in with your kids. Are you checking in with your kids? This is actually a topic I do periodically, especially when school starts. I talked about it around the time that the pandemic started and their lives was changing. And I really wanted to kind of revisit this topic. There's so much things going on, and people are affected in different ways. So just for people who are new to me, I have 4 kids. Every time I say that, people be like, you got 4 kids? I got 4 kids. 2 of my kids are special needs, and they're teenagers. And then I have 2 little ones. So they're, I'm trying to think of their ages. They are 9, 7. One's about to be 16. He's so excited. And one is 17. So I have 4 different kids, 4 different abilities in regards to what their understanding level is. And so I'm constantly checking in with them. The one thing that is important to understand about kids is that they don't typically have language to talk about what they are dealing with. They don't really have that language. And a lot of times when they're struggling, you will tend to see it behaviorally. You'll send it in their behaviors and the way they react. So if they start doing something different, unfortunately, as parents, sometimes we only focus on the behavior. We'll only focus on like what they're doing and tend to get disciplined for that, we see that also in schools, right? Especially with young Black boys, when things happen and they act out, unfortunately, the way that they are looked at is they don't take mental health into consideration. And I see that time and time again. I've worked in emergency rooms, and I noticed the write-ups on the way that Black kids were written up around their behaviors, and then with the white kids, the behaviors and the way they are written up looks differently. So a lot of times, for my parents, a lot of times you're going to see changes in behaviors. One of the things that is going to be important, because now like their life's changed, right? We're in the middle of a pandemic. There's a lot of things going on around racism. Not that it hasn't been going on before, but it's a lot more. It's very more impactful. My 9-year-old who uses YouTube ended up watching George Floyd video, and that was hard for me to know. But we talked, and he came down and he asked these questions and wanted to know what was going on. Because I'm always checking in with them, it's easy to have that dialogue, right? And so I'm a very solution-focused therapist, and I do want to, like, after I talk about this, I want to give you some solutions to think about how you can start working with your kids or talking to your kids, even if it's something you haven't been doing now. Like, you can start that process. A lot of times, unfortunately, we tend to ask them how they're doing when it seems like they're not doing well. By the time we can tell they're not doing well, a lot of times they may shut down, where they won't say anything, one, because they don't know what to say. They're just feeling these things, but they don't have the language to talk about it. And I know some adults that hear me talk, if you look back into your childhood, I'm sure you can look at some times in your life where you felt lonely, where you felt overwhelmed, where you felt sad, where you felt like you didn't want to be here, but you didn't have anybody to talk to, or you didn't have any language to express. And sometimes you may still not have that language. I only work with adults in my practice, and sometimes adults don't even have the language to express what they're feeling. Imagine like how hard that must be. If I went to the doctor and I was bleeding, and the doctor was like, "Yo, Celeste, I don't know why you're bleeding. I ain't got no prognosis. You're just gonna have to walk around bleeding." That would be really hard for me to do, right? And that's something I can actually see. It's very tangible. It's very in my face. The blood's going to be spreading everywhere. I'm going to see it as it spreads in the moment. When it comes to our mental health and our mindset, there are signs and things that could be happening. But if we're not in touch with our mind and our body and the way that we operate, it'll be hard for us to see it happen in the moment. And unfortunately, what will tend to happen is that we won't see it until we like bubble over, until we like snap. And so when you ever watch that show Snapped, or any of those crime shows, and it seems like it just kind of happened overnight, like, whoa, what happened? Like, things were boiling over prior to that taking place, prior to the big incident. But unfortunately, we missed the signs. And so I don't want us to miss the signs when it comes to our kids. I really want us to think about this. And I really want us to think about how we can work on supporting them. So like I said, I'm very solution focused. One of the common mistakes we make with our kids is that we will give them things as a replacement to deal with the things that they're struggling with, right? And the things that we give them can't replace what they're feeling, right? And we see this a lot, like if kids go through a traumatic event or something traumatic happens, it's like, we don't really want them to think about it. Let's not talk about it. That doesn't do them any good, because your body keeps the score. The mind remembers everything. So we will call ourselves like forgetting or trying to distract. And if you're an adult listening to this, I know that there are times in your life where you remember the things that took place that people didn't want to talk about, and you were left like trying to figure it out for yourself. And what happens when you try to figure it out for yourself, you end up being the reason why it's happening. You will internalize that and make it like it's your fault. Like, I'm the person I'm the reason why this struggle's happening, right? It's everything that I'm doing wrong. I'm not doing anything right. And then you grow up with this mindset. And unfortunately, it's hard to shake as you get older, because it's like become embedded in you. It's a part of your like brain makeup. The way you're wiring yourself is to believe that everything is your fault, that you can never do anything right. And so that's something that, you know, if you are somebody that deals with this, imagine like if you have kids, like they could have that same issue as well. And it's not because you're saying, hey, I want you to have the same issues I have, but it's because our kids are they're energy creatures. They, you know, if you think that they don't know what's going on, they know what's going on. They will, they can feel our anxiety, they can feel our depression, they can feel the things that we're struggling with. And so that's why it's important for us to just have the conversation. Like, it's okay. So solution oriented, right? So I want to help you think about some things that you can do to help with this process. If you have not thought about it, I really want you to think about it. It's important. The same way we go take our kids for physicals, the same way we will put a Band-Aid on them when they are bleeding. I really want you to think about like self-care and thinking about how you deal with your kids when in general, not even just when they're struggling, but just dealing with them. So one, understanding yourself and your history. How is it that you were brought up? Is going to be important, right? How were you brought up? Because some of us were brought up where we were to be seen and not heard. And if you think about that right now, like that really doesn't make much sense. You know, it's not our caregivers' fault that that's the way that they chose to raise us, right? That's just the way that they learned, and it was passed on and passed on. And that really doesn't work, right? It's so important for you to allow your kids to speak, allow them to express how they feel, because when they learn to deal with what they're feeling, they're not responding impulsively to the feelings that they're having that they can't explain, right? That behavior that I talked about earlier that ends up manifesting, now they can have that like mindset to understand what's going on. A couple years ago, my son was upset that his sister got a cookie and he didn't, and he pushed her and slammed the door. I wasn't upset about him being mad. It's okay to be upset about not getting something, right? And like as an adult, it's like, it's just a cookie. But when you're a 5-year-old kid or a 6-year-old kid, a cookie is a big deal. And so it's not about the being upset. It's about the action after being upset. So imagine if you were to understand that I'm feeling this way, and let me do some deep breathing, or let me think about what I can do so that I'm not responding to what I'm feeling, because I can't name it. So now I'm like, that's the way it's going to manifest. So really understanding how you were raised and how that plays a role in the way that you're parenting your child. That's important, because we cannot start and create something new if we don't understand where we've come from, or how our mindset plays a role in our parenting style. Two, start checking in with them, even if you have never done this before. If it's something that's new and you want to really start this process, just start checking in with them, asking them how they're feeling about the quarantine, how their day's going. Like, it's really okay to do that. I know we hear like, you don't want to be your kid's friend, but you want to be their human. Like, they're human, so they got feelings, they got emotions. We're dealing with different problems, right? Like, as adults, we have different problems than they have, but they still have problems. And so it's important for them to be able to have a safe place to talk about those problems, because guess what? Google is too easy to hop on, right? It was too easy for my son to find out about what was happening in the news and to see that video. And so like, they can literally Google anything. So why not let it be with you first, right? Why not I said, you know, after I had the conversation with him about what was going on, I said, you know, I can tell you not to like look up anything about it, but I don't want to just say don't do it. But I do think it's important for me to like talk to you about what's going on. And I explained to him about the ramifications or the consequences to consistently like looking at this stuff over and over again, and how it can play a role in your mindset. And so like making sure that you have open communication with your children about what's happening is important. 3, I just have 2 more things. So 3, create intentional time to spend with them. What does that mean? You may be like, oh yeah, we be chilling sometimes, but no, I want it to be intentional, like a date. Like make a date to hang out with your kids where you put your phone down, turn off the TV, or even if the TV's on, like you're watching the movie together, talking about how the movie was. Make intentional time to talk and spend time with your kids, where it's like something that's going to be scheduled, where there's no distractions. It's just you and your kids. If you have multiple kids and want to do it separately, that sounds like a good idea too. The last thing I want to say about this, because this is important, and if you have any questions, you can ask the questions. The last thing I want to say about this topic is take care of yourself. So if you're not taking care of yourself, you're not going to be any good. All the stuff I just talked about ain't going to happen because you're too stressed out to do anything. So if you can really work on taking care of yourself, guess what will happen if you start taking care of yourself? Then you'll have enough to give to your kids. We only got one shot with them, right? They grow up, they get older, and I've been in this field for over 15 years. So I see adults, I hear the stories, and it's not that we're bad parents, like we love our kids, but we don't love ourselves, right? Imagine if you started loving yourself, how much love that you can give to them. I know there's a lot going on in the world today, and I know there's a lot happening, but we don't have control over when the changes are going to take place or how it's going to play out. Right? We don't have control over that, but we do have control over being in the moment. We do have control over making sure we're making that space for our children. Like that's going to be important. That's key. And just remember that this is a journey, right? And so if you're listening to this and you're like, dang, like my kids are adults, I wish I had done this, or they're teenagers, like it's okay. They're still here. It's okay to start the process, right? It may feel awkward at first, right? Especially if it's something that's new that you're thinking about. It may feel awkward, but it's okay because you're opening up that dialogue of communication. So yep, that's the key. Thank you guys so much for being here, rocking with me, Jessica, Dominique, Periscope. So I'm on Periscope, Facebook, and YouTube. And I stream Monday through Friday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Every single Wednesday, it's just going to be me. I'll talk about a topic, and then I can answer questions about mental health. Like my goal and everything that I do is to shift the way you think. I think we get caught up in this negative cycle and we stay in it. And so the negative cycle that we're caught up in is the reality when things are hard. But I think the other part of that is like, what can we do to make changes? Like, how can I shift my perspective? And the reason why I say shifting the way you think, the reason why that's important for me is because, you know, we can't change our past. We can't change our history. We can't change what we were exposed to. We can't change what we've done, but we can work on changing the way we think about it. And when a lot of us think about ourselves, we think of ourselves as broken. We think of ourselves as damaged. But one of my favorite quotes that I love saying is that broken crayons still color, right? And so regardless of how much things have happened to you or what has happened to you, you still have value. Like if you're still breathing, if you're hearing this, you still hold value despite what's happened. And it's important for you to believe that. I can't believe it for you. I can talk about it. I can teach about it, but I can't believe it for you. You have to have that faith. And with this podcast and with you being able to hear other people's story, I feel like that it can give you some hope, because you'll be like, oh my gosh, that's the same thing I've been thinking, or that's the same thing I've been feeling. She took the words right out of my mouth, and then healing can start to take place. So I hope that's helpful. How many times do we overhear a parent tell a child to shut up or I'll give you something to cry about? That's got to be the worst thing. Yes. And that's something that, again, when we think about our upbringing and how it has affected us, it's important for us to really understand and work on changing the narrative. We can change the narrative. Don't get caught up in oh, well, this is how I am. This is the way I've always been. There's always room for change. I don't care what nobody says or what you've been told or what people said you weren't going to be. There's room for change. Daughters usually share stuff. How can we better connect with our sons to share emotions? Yeah, that's a really good question. And so I guess it's with our language. You know, a lot of times we have this embedded mindset and we don't even realize it, right? I have a 9-year-old son and a 7-year-old daughter. If they both fell and their knees scraped the exact same way, they fell the exact same way, my daughter the society will be okay with my daughter crying, but with my son, they'll probably tell him to man up. It's okay, like brush it off. But they had the exact same cut, the exact same fall. And so like I understand that narrative, right? I understand the narrative that's played. And so I allow him to share his emotions. I actually encourage it more with him because I know what society says. Right. So when you understand the way that you were brought up to think about certain things, it's important for you to work on not going with the pace of society. Like that's one thing I pride myself on. It's like I can create so much peace in my atmosphere right now, despite this chaos of the world, because I don't go at the pace of society. When you think about society is really jacked up right now. And a lot of the things that we've learned in society is just not right? It doesn't fit, it doesn't work. So allowing your son to express how he feels, asking him how he feels, pay attention to the language that he says, because again, our kids are not just in our homes, they're in schools, they're at their friend's house, they're at different kind of games. So they're hearing this stuff, right? And so listen to the language that they're talking about, because you can help redirect that and change it and say, yeah, you know, that's what people think, like that's what people say, but that doesn't have to be the case. So it's not like the thing about like working with your children, it's not like a sit down, like, you know, let's talk about this kind of thing. It's going to happen in your everyday conversations. Like as you're seeing something on TV or noticing something while you're driving. So it's really going to be while you're in motion, especially if they're young. That's how you start that kind of dialogue and allowing them to be okay with expressing how they're feeling and what they're feeling, allowing them to have a name to it. That's going to be key, important. So those were so good questions. Thank you guys so much. Don't forget, you can find me on all podcasting platforms. If you want to be on the show or have a show idea, email me info@celestetherapist.com, or you can DM me. I'm on all social media platforms. And the goal is to just shift the way you think. So if you have a story or if you're doing something to motivate or to inspire, like I would love to hear from you. So thank you guys so much for rocking out with me. Love you guys. Appreciate you guys. We'll be back on tomorrow. I'm going to be talking to somebody who is doing something to empower the lives of others.
Every laugh, every smile, every hug, every kiss, every touch, every person in my life that I care about and love. But wait, maybe I'm getting too emotional. That's exactly what they say you ain't supposed to do. Suppress your feelings, never talk about your pain. Can't appreciate the sun without acknowledging it rains, right? That's right. So this a moment of clarity. And make sure you always protect your energy. You stay focused and your life gon' be lit. And you are now rocking with Celeste the Therapist. Let's go.